Winning at sports and at sports broadcasting means changing things up.
Just like La Quinta Inns and Suites is changing up their look.
A renovated lobby that's so contemporary it even makes Golic look cool.
Yes, it does. And a totally updated fitness center that even has Wingo feeling like a workout.
I'm ripped. Plus plenty of comfortable spaces to hang out.
Yep, this La Quinta look definitely has a vibe of victory.
So you can just relax, refresh, and get ready for your next big meeting.
Prepare to win at business with La Quinta Inns and Suites.
Book now at LQ.com. Good Tuesday morning, everybody. Welcome into another edition of Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN News. We are presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Mike Golic Jr., Trey Wingo here. I continue to own it. I'm going to continue to own it because two weeks ago.
What are you owning?
How crappy the weather is.
Yeah,
it's all on me.
You came in here. Attaboy, Mike.
Yep,
oh,
thanks,
so
Mike.
When it's me, you guys are ready, but anytime it happens to one of them.
Yeah, there's a quick button there.
Typical.
You got a nice collared shirt on today, and you don't even turn your mic on.
You look respectable.
I don't understand
you
what
have a job
this
interview
is.
later?
Look
Cliff
respectable,
working against me.
Just didn't act professional.
Correct.
There you go.
It's all a package deal.
And you're right. You, and I don't believe in the golf gods and the weather gods and all that.
You have to now.
If you want to believe in that stuff, you certainly angered Mother Nature by saying, "Oh yeah." Yeah, what'd you say at the end of March or beginning of April?
Right end of March, we had one last snowstorm. I said, "This is over.
That's it's done. All the spring now.
Pull up all the stakes, the snow stakes out of the driveway."
Oh yeah, that's what it was. That was you really spitting in their face.
That was it right there.
So
and you know who's really mad at you? All the people who ran the Boston Marathon yesterday.
It's all my fault. So I apologize. I apologize to the folks in Green Bay who had like 8 feet of snow.
They did.
So I apologize to that.
That's all on you.
It is. It's all on me. And those people that ran the marathon yesterday, are you kidding me?
Crazy.
I would not have walked 5 steps in that, and they're out there 26.2 miles.
The only time I can remember weather like that is, Mike, were you a junior or senior in high school?
Senior in high
school.
school.
Jake was a junior. They played a game in rain like that, and it was like just above freezing, so it just wasn't snow. It was like 33
Which
degrees.
Which is actually worse.
Driving sideways rain, and it was basically only family members because we were contractually obligated to be in the stands for that game. It was miserable, and at least it was over in like 2 hours. You know,
it was over in 2 hours. You have halftime to go inside for a little bit. You can
Which
change
actually makes it worse.
Yeah.
It does in some sense, but you can change certain articles of clothing up just to relieve some of that. And at the end of the day, you're not asked to move quite as much. You're covering 26 miles in wet shoes and wet clothing. The amount of awful friction involved in that.
The chafing was off the chart.
I can't fathom it. So those people are all officially superheroes in my book. You are all demigods if you finished that race. If you even attempted that race yesterday. Because it is in absolutely unfathomable conditions.
Put your capes on, put your masks on. You are superheroes. We have a couple of really cool stories we'll get to in a little bit about that Boston Marathon. But boy, oh boy, what ugly weather. And those people running through it was just really, really incredible.
I think I remember 4 years ago when Teddy ran it for the first time, Teddy Bruschi, it was 80 degrees.
Oh.
And it was 34 and sideways rain and wind. But to your story about when Junior and Jake played at a game, there was a lacrosse game we went to on Memorial Day, and it was 39 degrees. That's just
cold.
Can't do it.
No, thank you.
Can't do
Very
it.
difficult.
So we'll get into more of the Boston Marathon and some of the amazing stories, the amazing runners, and some of the stuff that happened there, including the winner on the women's side, first time since 1985. A U.S. woman claimed the title, so congratulations. We'll get into that, but let's start with what we normally do.
It's time for Off the Top.
Whether you like it or not, it's just beginning.
With Golic and Wingo.
All right, we start with the NBA playoffs. Klay Thompson scored 24 of his 31 points after halftime as the Warriors rallied to beat the Spurs and take a 2-0 series lead. Thompson, 10 of 14. Let's do the math. That's 71.4% from three-point range this series. His best three-point percentage in a two-game span since March of 2016.
Yeah, he was somewhat ridiculous, and he wasn't even a leading scorer. Kevin Durant ended up being the leading scorer with 32 points. But what Klay Thompson is doing, that's why we talk about Golden State, because they have so many weapons. One is out in Steph Curry, others pick up the slack. And this was the year we all thought, could they be had because of how they're going into the playoffs? They just know how to answer the bell. They have the talent to do it. Now, a lot of that, look to the Spurs side of it. LaMarcus Aldridge played extremely well. What do you have? He had 34 points in this one, but no Kawhi Leonard. We don't think they're going to be this big, tough opponent for Golden State. We're all waiting for the Golden State and Houston Rockets matchup, but I'll stick by what I said earlier. You know, Steph will be back by then. These guys know how to work through when one or the other is injured, and they're going to be just fine.
Yeah, we've seen Clay do this before in Steph's absence on the big stage in the playoffs, and just the remarkable efficiency. He said over 71% from three-point, perfect from the free throw line, and only 2 turnovers in 79 minutes of game action in the last 2 games. So they're protecting the ball against the team in San Antonio that last night battled like hell. I mean, you saw all of that championship pedigree and pop there. They just don't have the horses for this one. So that was about as close as I think it's going to get.
Well, that's the question in this series. Is it telling us more about the Spurs or it telling us more about the Warriors? Because let's be honest, whatever the Spurs have been in the past, they're just not there right now because their show pony isn't there.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is the Spurs being the Spurs. Now, their regular season, what it wasn't normally was, but they had some injuries and they just didn't play as well. But the bottom line for a team like that, any LeBron team, is we know what it is. It's get to the finals and win the championship. And the Spurs are usually, or the Golden State Warriors are usually ready to do that.
If you were the Spurs, you could get over on a younger team. You could do what the Miami Heat did last night and get over on a young team like the 76ers. You're not going to do that against a champion like them. They're looking across on the other sideline and seeing a lot of themselves from the past in the Golden State Warriors.
Did you just say, if you look at what the Heat did against the Sixers last night?
Why, yes, it did.
You are good.
Off the top.
Because we continue in Off the Top. Led by Dwayne Wade, the Heat defeated the 76ers 113-103 to even the series and snapped Philadelphia's 17-game winning streak, which was, to be fair, 16 games in the regular season and in the first playoff game as well.
Yeah, Dwayne Wade coming off the bench at 36 years and 89 days old, the second oldest reserve with at least 25 points and 5 rebounds in a playoff game since starts were first tracked back in 1970. So again, off the bench, he scores those 28 points. But for Miami, I look at the whole, and any sport with that, the break in the periods, the halftime, you always look at how do you come out a halftime. Go back to game 1 of these two teams, and Miami actually had the lead, I believe, on Philadelphia, 60-56 at halftime in game 1. They got outscored 34-18 in the third quarter. 34-18, so that's how they came out. This game, they were outscored again, but 33-30. So they came out better in the third quarter and more aggressive in the third quarter. And that's one of the first things that Dwayne Wade mentioned after the game. He said a lot of that was about how we let the game get away from us in game 1. We stayed in it in game 2 because of that third quarter.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that you get as a veteran player is you understand situational aspects of sports better than a lot of the other guys around you. And for Dwayne Wade, a guy who, we thought this guy's knees were gone when LeBron James was back in Miami. They were nursing him through the regular season just to try and get him back to the finals and hope you get a few games out of him. So to see this in what could be his final season, to see certainly on the back end what seemed like a nice reward for him getting ready at home. His wife Gabrielle Union tweeted out after the game, "Now come on home, baby, I got something for you."
What's that?
Well,
putting it out for the world to see there right now. There's no shame to their game.
That's what we do in social media now. Put it out there for everybody to see, huh?
Respect the hustle. Congrats on the sex, guys.
Respect. Well, yes.
There you go.
Listen, hey. You play well, you are rewarded. We say that all the time. So congratulations.
Couple of kids in love.
There you go. Dwayne Wade turned back the clock and was in the zone last night. Hey-oh. So brought to you by AutoZone. Get in the zone. AutoZone.
Off the top.
I just don't think we're talking about this enough. The Golden Knights, expansion team in the NHL, look to sweep their first ever playoff series when they take on the Kings at 10:30 Eastern tonight. We, of course, will be up and watching. But they are doing things that just no one expected them to do, and they're doing it very, very well.
Yeah, really incredible. Looking to become the first franchise NHL history to sweep a postseason series in its inaugural season. Marc-Andre Fleury, their goalkeeper, has been playing great. 65 career postseason wins, tied with Dominik Hasek for 11th. But the story, I mean, the players, the story, what's going on, the support of the fans there. Again, it's been incredible. They set record after record this year. And now the expectation, so it's like, how well will you do? How many wins will you get? Oh, you're doing better. They keep exceeding expectations. So when you know what happens there, then more is expected of you. Well, okay, you've reached that pinnacle and you're going to the next one. Well, now the expectation is to get there. So they could end the season right now and you'd say, still, what an incredible success. But I think in a lot of the players' mind, it would be, no. I mean, we've gone this far. We're good enough. We think we can go a lot further.
Yeah, you get to that point and buy in. And really, it always depends on your group because most championship caliber teams, you get to the start of the season and this is what you see for yourself. But there's always got to be some show and tell, and especially for an expansion team to have to come together the way that they did and find that out over the course of this. I'm sure everyone's kind of turned the page on that. Even the fan base has got to be looking at this point and say, wait a minute, we got a really good hockey team, and we've been seeing it, fourth in attendance through this season. We've been bearing witness to this, so let's ride this thing until the wheels come off.
Well, you know what they're saying in Vegas all about this? Let's do that hockey. That's exactly what
do
they're
that.
saying.
I thought it was whatever happens in Vegas
stays in Vegas. No, whatever happens.
They're going everywhere.
Well, exactly. It doesn't matter where they go. They're taking it with them, but they are doing that hockey, and listen, it's a great story. And we'll see see how far they can ride this thing into the postseason.
Off the top.
And then there's our guy, Shohei Ohtani, making his third start on the mound as he looks to improve to 3-0 this season when he faces the Red Sox. The problem there is he'll be facing the Red Sox.
Yeah, he will. That's exactly right. So he was supposed to face the Royals, but that game Sunday got postponed. The Royals are not good at scoring runs. The Red Sox are tied for second in the majors in runs per game. So this will be a huge test for him, a guy who already has 3 home runs, looking for 3 wins, his third win as well. So, again, a great story that I think really grew because the spring training went so poorly that he's already exceeded that. And now it's like, okay, this is what we were kind of wondering if we were going to get. But now he's going up against a real quality opponent here in the Red Sox.
This is another one. You want to talk about where the tipping point lies, where all of a sudden you're going up against one of the best opponents in the young league year right now. This is the moment for Shohei, especially cross-country, one of the bigger market teams in the Boston Red Sox. All of a sudden, if this kid goes and shows up and shows out here, we're dealing with officially phenomenon status now. Has a chance to what did you just say? Become the first player in MLB history
ever.
to
3
win
home runs,
3 home runs,
3
3
wins.
So when you're on the cusp of those first and have the chance to do it against what has been one of the winningest franchises in the 2000s and 2010s in Major League Baseball.
And oh, by the way, by winning percentage, these are the 2 best teams in baseball.
Correct.
Right now. The Mets are right there. They only have 3 losses as well, but the winning percentage is a little lower because of wins. So, I mean, forgetting the individual performance here, which we're not going to because that's what we're talking about, from the team aspect, these are pretty good 2 good teams. As you know, we're always thinking about the Red Sox. Are they battling the Yankees, Toronto here at this point? And can the Angels, knock off the Astros, who are your World Series champs?
Well, the interesting thing here is what Shohei is going to be doing tonight, and as you said, who he's going up against, which would be, as you said, the Red Sox. But the other thing, we may have found the one thing that may be Shohei's weakness. He said he wishes the home crowd would be a little quieter.
Yeah.
A little quieter when he's in there. He likes to get locked in and be ready to roll.
Got to learn to clear the mechanism. Got to have him watch for love of the game for a little bit. Just clear the mechanism.
You know what you need to do is tell him.
Did you go full Billy Chappell on us right there?
Absolutely.
Nicely done.
You know what you need to do?
Yeah.
Tell him to get over it if this isn't golf.
Yeah, that's a fair point. You know what else he needs to do? Just keep doing what he's doing.
I want you to Shohei the way.
That'll never get old.
Never.
For the 3 of us.
And we look forward to those of you that don't like it to tweet and tell us you don't like it because when you do that, you know what we're going to do?
Fuel to our fire.
This is what we're going to do. Let's read a tweet. I don't like when you guys play that. Oh, really?
I want you to Shohei the way.
Just gives us our mojo, gives us our motivation.
Now I'm also kind of rooting, since you mentioned golf, that people will just start shouting mashed potatoes during his windup.
It's over the fence.
Exactly. It's in the hole. It's no. So we'll see what happens. Shohei tonight going up against the Boston Red Sox, and we'll see if the crowd is quiet for Shohei Ohtani. Okay, the crowd was pretty quiet last night in Philadelphia because they experienced something they hadn't experienced in a long time. That would be a loss after 17 straight games, one in the postseason, the first of the series against the Heat, and then, of course, 16 straight to end the regular season. But that wasn't the only thing that was going on with the Sixers' loss. After the game, Joel Embiid, who, of course, did not play, so he's continuing to recover from that cracked orbital bone in his eye, went to his Instagram page and tweeted out, "Effing sick and tired of being babied."
Only he didn't say effing.
He actually spelled it out the way you would not want to see it spelled out. He said the word.
Yes, he
the
did.
word.
Yes, he
so
did.
Anyway, obviously this was right after the game, and as you might imagine, because it happened right after the game.
You said he went to his Instagram page and tweeted, by the way?
Did I say that? Did I cross-pollinate?
You did.
He went to his Instagram page and Instagram.
Insted? I don't even know what the verb is for that.
Instagram.
What did he do?
Did he gram it?
Did he gram it?
He storied this.
Yeah,
this was a story.
Brett grabbed the mic. Hold on. Jeez, here we go.
I was just going to say in your ear that he put it on his story.
Put it on his story.
The story. He just called me out for grabbing the mic.
He storied it?
Yeah, he put it on his Instagram story.
Put it on his Instagram story.
We have to shorten it. It has to be a short.
Not as much of a commitment as a full gram.
He storied it.
Well,
because it goes away in a day.
Just go ahead and give out your handle, Brett. We know you want.
Couldn't a full gram get you for distribution? I mean,
hey
now, come on,
cut off the caffeine and sugar for the big man. So anyway,
I don't think it's caffeine and sugar.
Brett Brown was asked about his Instagram story, and this was Brett's response.
Joel just went on social media, and I'll give you the PC version of what he said. He said he's sick and tired of being babied. What has he said to you in terms of frustration with what's going on with him right now, whether that's just not being able to practice, play, whatever?
He just wants to play basketball. He wants to be with his team. He wants to play in front of the fans. He wants to see this through. And when he's not able to do that, he gets frustrated. And I respect his frustration. It's born out of competitiveness, and it's born out of him wanting to be with his team. And so the medical side, the different reasons, I'm not going to go there, but I do know the spirit in which he delivers that tweet that you just talked about reflects my conversations with him, that is completely driven out of team competitiveness. I want to play basketball, that type of flavor more than anything.
By the way, Brett Brown could only have grown up outside of Boston.
It's just fantastic, accent, right? Isn't it?
South Portland, Maine, I think is where he's from.
Yeah, just fantastic. And listen, I get it. I get it from the standpoint of the athlete being frustrated. Do we like the message that was delivered? Well, basically, this is today. This is how the millennials. It's true. That's how you communicate, right?
By the way, you see, my mistake is Brett's fault because he said tweet. So I was going with him.
So Brett sabotaged you to get on air.
Yes.
Yeah, I knew it.
Brett Brown, not Brett Prada.
No, Brett Brown.
Oh, I thought. Okay, I acknowledge one Brett around here. Sorry.
That's because he's Brettomology. But going back to your point,
again, I understand the frustration from an athlete. Without question, he wants to be out there, and he'd be out there if it was his choice. But it's not his choice right now. A lot of times, you protect the player from himself. You just wish at times that, even though I know this is the communication level of the athlete and people of that age today, you still wish you'd. Because now you throw your team under the bus. Why are you babying me? Just take that breath. You'd rather not see that story on Instagram. But, when I see it nowadays, I still don't get like the old man on the lawn because I'm like, I know this is how these guys communicate. And I think the people receiving that or reading that, like a Brett Brown, would be like, okay, this is how they communicate. He's a frustrated athlete. So I really don't think a ton about this.
Well, the issue here is this is why you have doctors to protect athletes from themselves. Because he thinks he's fine, he thinks he's 100% ready to roll, but that's not his call. Whether it's in football, basketball, baseball, the doctors and the medical staff on most of these teams are normally to protect the player from themselves. Because I'm sure he's saying, I feel fine, but the doctors have to look at it from, you may feel okay, but let's just say you get an elbow up there one more time. Then we're talking about a bone fragment that could go into your eye, and your career could be over. So you have to have some sort of sense of a wall of protection from these guys because they all think they're superhuman.
Sure.
You guys, that way when you played, you all thought I can go through anything, right?
And you try to.
Yeah, and you want to for the right reasons.
Yeah.
He has the right reasons.
Yes,
This guy has embraced this city, the process, all the things involved that were used to slight Philadelphia and the 76ers for so long. He took and repurposed and he made theirs. He is a big reason why they're there where they are now. And he's also a big reason why they're going to be a force to be reckoned with going forward. And that's the process you've got to guard against. Even now, when it feels good in the here and now to think, man, people are talking, we can make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. We think we might have that in us. You got to remember, you need this guy around. He's already been a guy like the rest of your stars that have had injury issues in the past. You got to make sure everything's good, right, and orderly going forward.
To that point, and how you understand the process, we'll get into this story a little bit later. There was a football player an NFL guy who decided to walk away for that very reason, sort of the opposite way, but it's about thinking about what is best for the team going forward.
Right.
We'll get into that a little bit later, but our Ramona Shelburne spoke with Embiid after the Instagram story, or before, and offer some context on the process of this injury.
I spoke to Joel Embiid before Game 2 and asked him if he was getting any closer to returning to the court, and he said, if it was up to me, I would play, but they won't let me play. He was smiling when he said that, because it was before Game 2. Afterwards, when the Sixers lost, he expressed his frustration at not being on the court in the social media posts. Now, just after 1 o'clock Eastern time, he expounded on his frustrations. He said, I promised the city the playoffs, and I'm not on the court. I may not be Thursday either. I wish more than anything that I was out there. I just want the green light to play. Now, I'm told that there are still medical hurdles that Joel Embiid has to clear in order to get back. So while he's close, there are still issues he has to work through before he returns to the court.
Yeah, and those things will not be his call, and that's something he's got to understand.
And again, whenever you hear about a player and injury, and you talk to a coach about it or something, they say, well, you know what, we asked the player. And I'm like, that's the last thing you do is ask the player. And, 99, I can't say all of them because some may say I'm not ready to go. 99% of the players are like, yeah, good to go, even when they're not good to go. So you're right. It's got to be up to the doctors. But that gets a whole other question of team doctors. Who has their pay? Who are they getting paid from? That's why one of the reasons the whole Kawhi Leonard situation, he's not dealing with the team doctors, but other doctors as well. So it can get muddled a little bit.
Yeah, this is always, by the way, the difference of how you treat stars in your franchise versus how you treat everyone else. Because if you're a role player, they're saying, you know what, you probably need to get back out on the court here sooner than later.
But again, it's all about investment and what you're willing to risk and against the possible performance. There's a sliding scale of justice. The better you are, the more you're going to get away with because your talent can be protected. But it is an interesting dynamic that you brought up. We have a frustrated, injured superstar who wants to play versus a frustrated, injured superstar. We're not sure if he really wants to play because of what's going on in San Antonio. We can get into that a little bit later.
Hey everyone, Mike Golic here. Support for the Golic Wingo podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. Rocket Mortgage is simple, allowing you to fully understand all the details and be confident you're getting the right mortgage for you. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS, consumeraccess.org number 3030.
Winning at sports and at sports broadcasting means changing things up.
Just like La Quinta Inns and Suites is changing up their look.
A renovated lobby that's so contemporary it even makes Golic look cool.
Yes, it does. And a totally updated fitness center that even has Wingo feeling like a workout.
I'm ripped. Plus plenty of comfortable spaces to hang out.
Yep, this La Quinta look definitely has a vibe of victory.
So you can just relax, refresh, and get ready for your next big meeting.
Prepare to win at business with La Quinta Inns and Suites.
Book now at LQ.com. We got Game 2 tonight. Cavs trying to get things going after losing Game 1. Not really good.
No,
not really good at all.
Not really good
actually,
at all.
And actually, tomorrow night they don't play.
Tomorrow night.
I made that mistake before. Don't do that because Twitter just lives and waits for you to make that one minuscule mistake that's completely inconsequential.
Too late. There are 3 games tonight. Washington's at Toronto. Milwaukee is at Boston. And New Orleans is at Portland.
Yes.
So there you go.
However, the Cavs will eventually play Game 2.
Yes, they will. It'll eventually have. First round usually takes about a month and a half.
Correct. Yeah. Well, we all benefit
there
from
you
this.
Go.
Let's be clear. I mean, you're right. Sometimes there's nothing longer than the break between one game and Game 2 in the same city.
Yep.
6 days later, they'll play.
A lot of time to hang out and enjoy the city.
Right? Get a little flavor of everything that's going on. Yeah. Now, LeBron did not attempt a shot in the first quarter of Sunday's home loss to the Pacers. And Ty Lue wants him to make the switch and be more aggressive. Make the switch brought to you by Pennzoil Synthetics, taking synthetic motor oil performance to a whole new level. Make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics today. So about that, LeBron did have a triple-double and obviously was the best player that the Cavs had, but he came out maybe a little sluggish. And Ty Lue says, look, man, if we're going to get back in this thing, that has to change.
He has to be aggressive and set the tone early. We talked about that today also, just being aggressive early, set the tone, especially for these new guys, bringing these guys along. So he understood that. But once again, he's always a guy trying to get his teammates off early, get the guys going, and then trying to fill the game out. But we're ready to set the tone game too.
See, I'm not going to lie. I don't have a problem with what he did at all. Not one bit. He's done this before. He has done this before where he comes out and he tries to get his teammates involved. what better place than new teammates together? They've been together for a while, but first playoff game with these new teammates, and you're at home. You're in front of the home crowd.
Get them going, yeah.
Get them going. And, to hear LeBron talking about it, he's like, listen, they're doubling the ball, which is me. So I'm finding guys that were open. The shots just didn't go down. And we talked about it after that game. We just said that do we think they're going to shoot 23% from threes and 38% overall 3 more times in this series? Probably not. My vote would be against that they'll shoot better. I really don't. I hear everybody saying he's got to be more aggressive, and he will. We've seen that before as well. But let's not act like we've not seen what we saw in game 1, where he tries to dish it off, tries to get everybody involved. And again, I don't have an issue with it. First playoff game with this group at home. Let's try and get those guys into the game early.
And there can be some of what we see normally happen in the world of sports, which is the Cavaliers with LeBron James in tow, even with these new guys looking at him and saying, man, we've got him and they don't. We feel pretty good about that. We're Cleveland with LeBron James, and you're not. You're the Indiana Pacers, and there's some human element of the fact that you probably looked at that team and slept on them a little bit, and now you won't, and now you see that response. And I heard Steve Kerr talk about it with Golden State and the Spurs in Game 2. He says, I see this in Game 2s all the time. When things go really well in Game 1 for one side, usually there's a strong recorrection the other way, and I have a feeling we're due for that in a big way with LeBron James, who we know is going to come out and probably turn into jump shot LeBron, right? Would anyone be shocked after a game where he didn't make a single shot outside of the restricted area if all of a sudden he's 4 for 7 from 3 and has 35+ points and is just attacking from the jump?
Well, look, motivation comes in many forms. I mean, Victor Oladipo went off about how much he felt motivated by what the Cavs owner, Dan Gilbert, had said about the team, and now they weren't thinking about it. So clearly, it doesn't matter how often you've done it or how long you've been doing it. If somebody pokes you and prods you, even if it's your own head coach, there's some part of LeBron that says, fine, you want me to be more aggressive? Watch this. He'll score the first 12 points of the game and put it to rest.
And I think he probably would have done that anyway. He went out with this thought process of, not only am I getting doubled, but I'm getting my teammates involved, and they're open. I mean, there were open shots, and they weren't falling. So I would have thought, even if Ty Lue didn't say anything, LeBron would be like, okay, that didn't work. I'm going to need to be a little more aggressive in the beginning, score a little more early on, and then work my teammates in. This is a song and dance we've seen before out of LeBron. How many times has he been criticized, whether it's early or late, dishing the ball instead of shooting the ball? When you know what he does really well? Dishes the ball. He does a great job of it, and he gets it to the open guy, and the guy gets an open shot. And I know there are those that will say that will always hold him back from being better than Jordan. Jordan always took the shot, and I get it. But LeBron could go down as the greatest point guard of all time if he wanted to. This guy dishes. This guy gets his teammates involved, and a lot of people think maybe too much so. Maybe he doesn't take enough on himself, but this is the way he plays.
And this is one of those things, too, the funny ways and the metrics that we use to judge LeBron James, because you mentioned what he's trying to do now, the way he has to go about winning might be a little different because it's going to be more on him than ever before. And it seems like that's a slight now, the fact that he doesn't have another superstar, when for so long it was exactly the opposite. We villainized this guy for bringing together superstar players to that team in Miami and really helping start, along with the Celtics, but we know the Heat really made it hot, of that trend of bringing in multiple superstars in a team, that now we look at the NBA and say there's no other way to win. And so for LeBron James here, who's got Kevin Love, who's very good and is going to be a huge part of it as how far they go. But for LeBron James trying to do it on his own, all of a sudden we look at it and say, what's wrong with you? Why couldn't you get another guy?
And to your point, Trey, which is a good point about getting egged on, but at times I don't think LeBron needs that. He can do it to himself.
Right.
What's one of the things he did this year based off of last year? Everybody talked about, these NBA guys need rest. They got to have rest.
82.
And so they did make the season a little longer and took away some of those back-to-backs. But what did he do in his 15th year?
Played all 82 games.
For the first time in his career. I think that was also part of kind of his way of saying, look, I could do this.
Yep. It is interesting. He's one of those guys that is just, for whatever reason, polarizing to a lot of people. Like, to your point, Junior, we criticize him when he has superstars around him. Then we're saying, well, you couldn't do it without the superstars.
Right.
I mean, it sounds almost crazy to say, you talk about what a guy has done in his 15th year and all the things he's accomplished, but sometimes it feels like no matter what he does, you can't win with LeBron James, or he can't find the win because someone's always going to say, yeah, but with this guy, which I've never really understood.
People don't like it when you're good and you know it. That's when we stopped liking Steph Curry too and the Warriors, when all of a sudden we realize, oh, wait a minute, they know how good they are. But with LeBron too, once you get good enough to potentially hurt people's idols the way he is, that's when they really start to get dangerous, and that's when people really start to turn on you.
Yeah, as you build someone up enough, to when you build them up too much,
tear him down!
Just sling arrows at him until you get him down. That's exactly right.
Look, we talked about that a little bit with Russell Westbrook, right? No one had ever done what he did last year since Oscar Robertson did it in the early 60s. And then he went and did it not only for the second time, but in back-to-back years, and we were like, yeah, whatever.
Sigh.
Not only did no one had ever done it twice, he did it in back-to-back years, averaging a triple-double, and we're like, yeah, we're kind of over it.
Yeah, isn't it amazing?
It's just, we're not really into it anymore.
And I almost think it was harder this year because he gave the ball up a little more to a guy like Carmelo early on, and then Paul George so much. You look at the scoring differences of the 2 years. It's amazing, but we love to sling arrows, and
we move that platform whenever we feel like it.
And we'll get into it later with LeBron. There's other slinging arrows at him that has nothing to do with basketball.
Some of that is own doing, by the way. Be careful what you wish for because you just may get it going forward, and we'll have that story a little bit later. But coming up, a star was born yesterday, and it took the internet a long time to figure out her name and her story. She'll be going back to work tomorrow after conquering the elements in almost ungodly ways, and almost everyone else in the field as well. That's next. It's Golic and Wingo, ESPN Radio, ESPN News.
Here's a little insider travel secret. There are tons of empty hotel rooms out there just waiting to be booked. That's why there's Hotel Tonight. Hotel Tonight partners with awesome hotels to help them fill their unsold rooms, which means you get incredible deals. And even though the name's Hotel Tonight, you can actually book up to a week in advance and up to 100 days in advance in top destinations. So download the Hotel Tonight app to start scoring better deals at better hotels now.
The big question for anyone that's a huge fan of The Wire is, which theme song season did you think was the best of all time?
Wow, I actually haven't thought about that. You've now killed 20 minutes of my day because now I'm going to go do this.
Well, that's funny because most people think I kill 4 hours of their day.
Pretty much.
You got off light.
Wow. Time for a little Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. If you don't mind, before we get into the marathon,
go ahead, boss.
Just for fun today, Let
me just state my opinion on this. Yeah. I am always pro fun. Okay, so if it's fun, I'm in. Let's go.
We had the family group text, and it got going last night. It was actually Chris, your mother, my wife, who threw it out there about Little Debbie's.
I love the fact that you had to
clarify
who you're talking about to your son and to yourself.
I'm married to your mom, son.
Well, I mean, Mike did say dad.
That's true. That's true. We go along.
Either way,
my dad.
We ended up throwing out a poll. Sydney threw it out at Sid Golic first on her Twitter site, and then I retweeted it. It was about the Little Debbie snacks. This is what we talked about, and it was the top 4, and we had a poll. What is the best Little Debbie snack? And the 4 we put up were oatmeal cream pie, Swiss roll, the Nutty Bar, or the zebra cake. We put that up last night. We have a little over 21,000 votes. It goes for another 13 hours, but if you want to jump on that, there's a lot of fun with that. A lot of people talking about it, bringing back memories of not having one of these. Some guy said, cream pie would be me, the oatmeal cream pie. I haven't had one in 24 years. I said, dude, go get one and try it again for the first time.
They're at the gas station.
I mean, they're at every gas station.
They'll live forever. I mean,
they will. It's exactly right.
They will not spoil. Let's be clear about that.
I stopped at a gas station on the way in here this morning and got all 4 of these, like 3 or 4 each of them, and just dumped them out on the table to let people try. But it's a fun little poll. It started out at Sid Golic. Again, I retweeted if you want to jump in on it. A lot of people have. It's what would you choose?
Well, I've only had one of those things.
What have you had?
The oatmeal cream pie.
You've never had a Swiss roll, a Nutty Bar, or a zebra cake?
No. I didn't even know they existed.
Burn the witch.
Wow.
Burn the witch.
That's awful.
Am I the witch in this scenario?
You're the witch in this
Why
scenario.
am I the witch?
Oh.
You ignore all those goods. Clearly, there's something.
I didn't know they existed.
Clearly, something wicked this way has come, so we got to get you the hell out of here.
Wow.
All right, see ya.
Okay. Go right out
try
there.
one.
Go right out. There's a bunch of them out there on the table.
And hurry, because I'm eating them at a rate that is not sustainable for the rest of you guys.
Brett has gone through 3 Nutty Bars, I believe, already. It's been ugly.
Brett had his first Nutty Bar, and he is now on his 4th.
Yeah.
So if I'm the witch, I guess I melt with water, right?
There you go.
So that's why I didn't run the Boston Marathon yesterday.
Good.
Hey-oh, thank you very much.
Nice segue. Good job out of you.
It was again, if you didn't live in the East Coast and you didn't have to suffer through the weather that was going through yesterday, it was about 36 degrees and sideways rain. Teddy Bruschi, our good colleague here, who does his Teddy's team, helps people stroke awareness, has a team every year that runs a marathon. He sent me this video of what it was like. It was unbelievable. If you didn't see it, they're running into this wind. It was raining so hard, and the wind was so strong, it was just throwing it in people's faces. And they were running not only against the hill and everything else, but literally into the wind and into the rain. It was crazy. And we had some great stories. First of all, Desiree Linden won the marathon for the women, the first U.S. woman to win the Boston Marathon since 1985. And she pulled away at Heartbreak Hill to win in 2 hours, 39 minutes, and 54 seconds. But then there's this wonderful story of the runner-up on the women's side in the Boston Marathon.
Yeah, really incredible. Sarah Sellers. And basically a headline, an article about her is, who the heck is Boston Marathon runner-up Sarah Sellers anyway? Turns out she's a nurse from Arizona. I mean, the full-time nurse. She ran in college. She ran pretty well in college, broke her foot, I think, at the end of it and had to miss a couple of years of running. Basically got herself, what was it, a pair of $90 New Balance shoes. New Balance 1400s, $90. She ran this thing.
It's only her second marathon.
Her husband came with her. I had other family members that ran it as well. Crossed the finish line. She had no idea. No idea she came in second place. None at all. Had to be told. And with that, oh, by the way, she wins $75,000. Her second marathon, she came in second in the Boston Marathon. She was looking to be in the top 15 for American women to qualify for the Olympic trials for the marathon.
Congratulations.
Second overall in the Boston Marathon. Just an incredible story.
Don't think she's going to be paying for those New Balance sneakers anytime in the near future now. You can stash that $75,000 away for something else and focus on being a freak of nature, because clearly that is where this woman resides.
Yeah, in an interview with the Boston Globe, she said the whole thing felt surreal. I didn't even know it was a possibility. I was trying to ask officials what place I was in. I had no idea when I crossed the finish line. That actually is the most unusual thing about this, because normally when you're that far in front of the rest of the field, you have, I guess, more experienced marathoners would, because they have a judge of who they've seen on the course, who they've passed, who they haven't passed. But she was so oblivious. Larry Cole was a defensive lineman for the Dallas Cowboys many, many years ago, and they had a substitute quarterback come in named Clint Longley and won a game by throwing 2 touchdown passes in the fourth quarter on Thanksgiving to beat the Washington Redskins, and he called it a victory for the uncluttered mind. It seems like this might have been another victory for an uncluttered mind. If you're not thinking about all that stuff and you just go out there and do it, sometimes good things happen.
This is probably the only place you can go running the marathon in this condition, right? You have to put yourself in that mental place. You always talk about the places guys have to bring themselves before a football game, trying to go to some place where you can go out there and run yourself into other human bodies for a couple of hours. To go and run 26.2 in those kind of weather conditions yesterday, it would make sense and probably be beneficial to your overall health to try and just put yourself as an absolute blank slate.
I mean, she said the best case scenario going in, I thought maybe that she'd win enough money to cover the trip out here. Well, unless they flew in a Learjet and stayed in the Taj Mahal, it'll more than cover that. Here's the best part. She's a Utah native. She's going back to work tomorrow.
Oh, I mean,
one day.
Incredible.
Well, this is like the goalie that came in and filled in for the Blackhawks.
Scott Foster.
That's the day you want to go into work, is the day after all this.
Get a load of me.
Go ahead here. I got back slaps for days, everyone. You're not doing any work. It's just a bunch of praise. That's the best day to be in work.
So congratulations to her. Then how about an incredible story of perseverance?
Yeah.
Here's this, reading on Twitter. For 15.5 miles, my wife Mary ran in the heavy wind and torrential rain in the worst of marathon conditions in a quest to complete her first marathon. At that point, her body began to shiver uncontrollably, her lips turned purple, and because of her compromised immune system, her doctors instructed her to stop running in the rain should this happen. The rain has now stopped. This is way later. And the dry clothes we now have on, we are at the Dunkin' Donuts where she stopped running at 4 p.m. We will now finish Mary's journey and hit the finish line together.
That's fantastic.
So they waited till the rain stopped after the race, got in dry clothes, and went and finished the marathon from the spot where she went off the course. That's amazing.
It is. Like, to me, congratulations to the winners in the Sarah Sellers story and Desiree Linden, but some of the guys who just find a way to finish.
Yeah.
Some of the runners that find a way to, they're the most inspiring of all.
Well, the training that you did for it, I mean, you want to get that finish, and to run through that has to just be ridiculous, incredible.
Guessing America really does run on Duncan.
Hey, now.
There you go.
Wow.
Look at you. I think the collared shirt is making you a lot smarter today.
It really is.
Here all day, guys.
Actually, you're not probably at all here all day.
20 minutes.
That was Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks. Coming up, all rise as the judge has sent a new benchmark. How high can he go? That's more with us.
My dry cleaning.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I feel like a whole new person.
Disclaimer, you will not become a whole new person. This is impossible. You might be able to join a gym or diet program, buy a new wardrobe, get hair implants, but your DNA and physical form will remain the same. Geico waives any and all liability if you attempt to become a new person, except a cyborg. If you choose to become a half-human, half-cybernetic organism with lasers for eyes, the Geico legal team would be cool with that, because, quote, laser eyes are pretty sweet. Pew, 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 end quote.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
It's April, and some things are winding up like baseball, and some things are winding down like hockey. Thankfully, Pennzoil Synthetics provides your vehicle with complete protection for top engine performance no matter what season it is. So you don't have to worry about ups and downs. Pennzoil. Make the switch.
Sellout here at the Oracle in Oakland.
It is going to be a struggle. It's looking more like this series probably won't get even past 4.
Thompson, a catch, a shoot, and a triple for Thompson. That quickly, that easily. Klay Thompson, true from 3, and the Warriors can do no wrong in this third quarter.
If Golden State want to make this a short series, they will make this a short series.
Golic and Wingo with you on a Tuesday morning. ESPN Radio and ESPN News. We are presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Some of the guests we have coming up in just a little bit. Ian Begley, ESPN NBA reporter, will join us at 7:30. He was at the game between the Sixers and the Heat last night. What does he make of the Sixers actually losing a game?
Oh, no.
We'll get into that. Jeff Darlington, hashtag Florida Man, our fine ESPN NFL reporter, will join us in studio. I told him he probably didn't need to bring his sticks for this trip. No chance of that.
Yeah.
Plus, Stephen A. Smith will join us in studio here for the final hour, of course, from First Take in the Stephen A. Smith Show.
Well, they stunk.
And we'll talk about what he meant with that and everything else going forward.
Look forward to that. Yeah. So don't bring the sticks. It's wet up here now. It has rained. See, I will not golf either when I can use the golf cart, but you have to stay on the cart path.
Yeah.
Like when it's too wet.
So it's not even if you had to walk from the path and where the cart is to your ball, you're not doing it.
I'll do the
You were an athlete.
I'll do the 90 degrees.
Yeah.
Where you to the ball, that whole thing.
Of course.
But if you got to stay on the cart path, no.
You were an athlete.
Keyword was I'm not now.
But you're in better shape now than you were when you played.
I am in great shape right now, but you know what? I'm not going to overextend myself. Why would I do that?
Hashtag walking.
Yeah.
I remember being in college, and there was no more in-shape group of people than all the student athletes I hung out with Notre Dame.
You guys were
and it was the number one group of people
Yeah.
you would see in the elevator going from the first floor to the second floor in the academic building in DeBartolo Hall. So you can be as in shape and athletic as you want. That just means you prioritize movement. You save the good stuff for the field.
Hey, did you guys go to Notre Dame?
Yeah, we did.
I wasn't aware of that.
Once or twice.
You guys should talk about that every once in a while.
No, we don't want to burden people with
By the way, we should speaking of burdening people, and I hate to bring this up, but I think it's important. Today is tax day. I think a lot of people.
Oh, is today the day?
Today's the day.
The tax man cometh.
Because it was on a weekend,
Right,
they gave you the 2 extra days. So, folks, we try to lift you up on this show. We try and get you going in a positive manner, but sometimes we have to remind you that there are things out there that you must do.
Yeah.
And those taxes are one of them. You don't want Uncle Sam coming back at you.
No. The word worse than the F word that Joel Embiid used is the A word. Audit.
Yeah.
You want no part of that.
Zero.
Hey, man, you want no part of that Wesley Snipes. Think it through.
Yeah. Good
true.
point.
Think it through.
Very
good point.
Yeah.
And by the way, it does make sense that we're talking about this because of the person that reminded me of this. And that would be Stanzik, who is the most unhappy fellow ever.
That's very true.
I mean, he's the grumpiest person in the world. He's perpetually grumpy. And he said, hey, don't forget it's tax day. So Stanzik, like most times, is bringing us down.
There you go.
He is.
Yeah.
But you know what? He is true to himself. And for that, I respect.
Yeah.
I've received a tip from behind the scenes that it was actually Brett.
Well, it was Brett, but Brett said something to Stanzik, and Stanzik said that to me. So, yes. By the way, I love the fact that it was brought to your attention by Brett. that it was Brett.
Well, yeah, of course, because Brett wanted his credit.
This is how air crazy Brett is. We're talking about Stanzik about something terrible, and Brett's like, no. I'd rather you talk about that me on the air.
By the
rather
way,
it be me.
I'd like to ask Brett a question because he's our numbers guy.
Yeah.
Do you do your own taxes?
Yeah.
You do?
I do.
Why?
I figured you did.
Well, it's also, I'm cheap, so you gotta, you don't want to pay somebody to do your taxes.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I absolutely do. I want
you guys can pay people to do your taxes.
Well, you can too.
If you want to pay someone to do my taxes, then by all means.
Now we're talking. See, really start to take care of the show.
How about if I pay you to do my taxes?
No.
Okay.
How about if you pay us and we don't do your taxes?
Yeah.
How about if we get to what's trending?
You know what? Just wait. I have one piece of info here.
Yes.
There's a reason that it's on the 17th and not the 16th.
Or
because it's on the weekend, or 15th's on a weekend. It would be the 16th. The 16th is a holiday in Washington D.C. to commemorate the emancipation of slaves in 1862. So
is that what
it's
yesterday
Emancipation
was?
Day in Washington D.C. specifically.
Yeah.
And so they pushed it another day to the 17th.
I did not know that.
I did not. I didn't know that as well. I just thought it was because it was on a Sunday. They gave us the
extra day. Guess now we know why.
Well,
he's so good at his job.
He is. He just likes to get on the air a lot.
There you go.
Okay, and we appreciate that, Brett. And we're doing Brettomology later on this week, right? We're doing it.
Of course we are.
Tomorrow. Excited. Yeah. Excited about that.
Eat your heart out, Levitard.
All right, there we go. Here we go. Let's start with what's trending, and this just in, the Warriors are good from deep. Klay Thompson, 24 of his 31 points after halftime as the Warriors rallied to beat the Spurs, and Thompson was on fire as they go up 2-0 in this series.
We keep talking about the regular season, the injuries, them not looking as good. Is that going to bleed over into the playoffs? We say it's always difficult to flip the switch, even though that's what LeBron's teams do every now and then, is flip the switch come to the playoffs. And normally, as you know, Mike, it's not that easy to do as an athlete or a team to get to a one level and then say, okay, let's start trying now. It's usually very hard to do. And I think with Golden State, it's not like they forgot how to play at all, but Klay Thompson is just out of his mind right now. And I think the other side of that is San Antonio, outside of LaMarcus Aldridge, was never going to do anything without Kawhi Leonard anyway. So I think it's just as much about that.
I think flipping the switch works when you've got the switch that can be flipped. Like, we think about this all the time in terms of the Cavaliers with their defense the last couple of years, where they've never had the ability to play great defense because of the construct of the team, because of the guys in there. And so thinking just because you change the calendar over a month doesn't mean they're going to all of a sudden start playing great defense. The Warriors know they've got this in the tank. They've seen themselves do this over and over again when they need to, so that's a much easier switch to flip.
By the way, speaking of flipping the switch, when Junior gets passionate about something, his eyes get enormous.
Lights up.
He'll just talk, but then he goes like this, and he's looking at you like, do you understand how important this is to me and how much passion I feel for this thing? It's quite an impressive glaze.
It's pretty wild. I've seen it all my life. I just shut him out.
Yeah.
Very rare clarity, because usually everything else I'm saying is dumb and gargled and jumbled.
Just the way he said that to you was like, I don't really care about what's coming out of my mouth. But then he'll look and talk like this, and suddenly it's like lasers are coming out of his eyes. It's really impressive.
And then he'll laugh.
Yeah. Like that?
Yes.
Once
I just
again,
wanted you to do it.
There it is. Nothing beats Junior's laugh. Nothing beats it, including what's trending. Joel Embiid is trending about venting on Instagram. It was an Instagram story.
Yes.
Let's be clear about that. Joel, who has not played in the first two games of the series against the Heat and did not play down the stretch of the regular season because of the injury to his orbital bone, the fracture there, posted on Instagram saying, bleeping sick and tired of being babied. And this comes after, of course, the Heat had a throwback performance from Dwayne Wade, 28 points off the bench, and now Miami has home court advantage for this series.
And by the way, he didn't say bleeping. He wrote out the very bad word. He wrote it, and I get it. He's a frustrated athlete. All athletes want to come back before they're ready to go. Doctors are keeping him out. They're the smart ones. They're the ones that are supposed to make sure you're ready to go. He wants to be out there. He's a frustrated athlete. And he let it be known on his Insta story. But a nice, this was one of the, like, I picked Milwaukee to beat Boston. A lot of people thought without Kyrie, maybe Boston could slip up, and what a phenomenal game one that was, going to overtime. One of the other series was people thought that Miami maybe could get the 76ers, especially with Embiid out and them not having a lot of playoff experience. We still don't know if Embiid will play in game 3. Down in Miami, or we'll wait to see on that. But Miami steals one in Philly. They steal home court. Dwayne Wade is vintage Dwayne Wade coming off the bench. So this one could get interesting for all the talk of Philadelphia, and boy, are they going to be the team we think down the road, but they're trying to be that team obviously this year.
I said going into this series, this first home game in Miami would tell a lot because, listen, that South Beach flu can hit for certain guys depending on how disciplined your team is, but also it's a young team, predominantly, especially at their core, going on the road in a playoff environment for the first time. And now they've already given one up. I'm sure that is all the more reason why Joel Embiid is chomping at the bit to come back, because he recognized this is a pretty pivotal moment for this team in their first postseason run.
And again, still not sure whether he'll play in Game 3. There are a lot of hurdles medically still to be cleared, and it's not up to him, and that's the frustrating part. One other thing to keep in mind, and we'll get about this, talk more about this with Ian Begley, this 16-game winning streak down the end of the regular season, forget Game 1 of the playoffs because it's a quality opponent, it was done on a lot of bottom feeding. It really was. The 76ers' final 16 games, their opponents had a combined winning percentage of .437, the equivalent of a 35 or 36 win team in the regular season. So their average opponent down the stretch, look, they handled their business. You can't change who your schedule is, but just know what you're getting. Their average opponent was basically the Lakers or the Hornets during that 16-game regular season when a lot of teams are trying to lose as well. Now, they did have the big win over the Cavaliers, no question about it, and a couple of other ones. But, yes, they won 16 straight, but you have to look at the quality of the opponent and see how much that factors into what we think going forward. The Sixers' loss to the Heat is what everybody's talking about, brought to you by Lowe's. Pros in the know start with Lowe's. Go to lowesforpros.com for detail. That just rolls off the tongue.
Yes, it does.
And we finish up with Aaron Judge just beginning, really. He hit his 4th homer of the season in the Yankees' 12-1 decimation of the Marlins. It is the 60th of his career, and, Mike, that is significant.
Yeah, it is absolutely significant. It is passes. He's now the fastest player from a games played standpoint to hit 60 home runs. He did it in 197 games. Mark McGwire had been the fastest to 260. In 1988, he did it in his 202nd game. So we know how the season started. Stanton right out of the gate, a couple of home runs. Judge has now been consistent with the 12-game hitting streak. He's hitting .351, the 4 home runs, 11 RBIs. Stanton struggling. He goes 0 for a couple of more strikeouts. He only has 1 less RBI, has 10 RBIs, 1 less home run than Aaron Judge, but he has 27 strikeouts already, does Stanton. Judge is next on the list with 17, but so Judge keeps that hit streak going, and Stanton, it's either, a ball goes bye-bye or he goes bye-bye back to the dugout after striking out.
Yeah, I think that's what they're looking for, is they would just take that consistency from both at this point, but you would basically believe, based on the headlines, that nothing good had been happening for the Yankees so far this season when it came to these guys outside of that first couple of plate appearances. So nice to see a positive headline for the guys in pinstripes for once. And Aaron Judge, a guy who for once.
Yeah. All those championships.
Yeah, really meaningless
those
now.
Scrappy little Yankees.
But, Stanton's been this headline, but it's nice to see Aaron Judge getting back into the forefront, considering what an important part he was for this Yankee renaissance last year.
Certainly was, and it'll be interesting to see when Giancarlo Stanton breaks out of his funk, especially at Yankee Stadium, because, they'll put up to it. They'll put up with it for a little bit.
Oh, they already got booed.
The tide will turn one way or the other very strongly if things don't change.
And oh, by the way, Didi Gregorius is leading in home runs. He has 5.
Did you see that homer? It was a rocket. That thing got out in a hurry.
Yeah, it did. Only to be outdone by the broken bat in 2 by Bryce Harper.
Casual.
406 feet. I'll just muscle this thing out there. My God, it's unbelievable. And there's another thing we can get into with Giancarlo Stanton a little bit later that may have an explanation as to why he's not as focused at the plate, and it may be something that might surprise you a little bit.
Surprise you, and to me, one of the dumbest things I think I've ever read.
Also true. Yeah. We'll get into that a little bit later, but let's talk a little football here for a second. One of the things that happened last week is the end of the week is when Dez Bryant and the Dallas Cowboys parted ways. And one of the big reasons why was obviously that Dez was due $16.5 million, but apparently there was not even a negotiation. It was just, hey,
no pay cut or anything.
No pay cut. That wasn't talked. We're just going to move on. So Dez now has been very motivated on social media and other places, basically saying he wants to play for somebody in the NFC East because he wants to go and play the Dallas Cowboys twice. So apparently he named the 3 teams, obviously Washington, Philadelphia, and New York. And of those 3 teams, Bryant appears to be most interested in the Giants, according to Mike Fisher of 105.3 The Fan. The Giants got a hell of a defense. They're going to pay Odell Beckham Jr., playing with him, Sterling Shepard, the tight end, Evan Ingram, Eli Manning, crazy. That's great, but you got to have a dance partner. And I'm not sure that we're seeing a lot of dance partners right now for Dez Bryant.
No, you're not. And you sit there and you look at New York, and I think he could maybe think he could be what they thought Brandon Marshall might have been when he went to the Giants. But that clearly didn't work out. Yeah, and I don't know what the money situation would be for him to try and sign him, but he's going to have a dance partner. It's hard to think that this guy has something left. As we talked about this yesterday, he has something left in the tank. It's just not worth $16.5 million to the Dallas Cowboys from the business decision side of this. So I have a hard time believing, unless he's still asking for the moon in money in this situation, that he is going to find a team, and he may have choices of teams he's going to find.
Well, the interesting thing here, too, Mike, is that the timing of this for the Cowboys is curious.
Yeah, they didn't do him any favors.
Right? I mean, I don't know if it was an intentional thing or it just escalated to the point where they realized, hey, it's not going to work going forward, and then they decided to sort of pull off the Band-Aid. Because when you release a player some 30 days after the start of free agency, you have really limited his options. I don't think that was their intention to begin with, and I think they were hoping that maybe they could try and find a way to work this out. But, that face-to-face meeting didn't come until Friday. Didn't come until last Friday with Dez and Jerry. If you're really curious about how this is going to work, I think you want to have that meeting before Friday, April 13th, right?
And especially if you claim to care about the player involved as much as everyone does. Dez is a guy that in this organization from Jerry on down talks about him pretty highly. So I'm with you, Trey. This reeks of more not really having a concrete plan and how you wanted to go about things here. And now for Dez, it's an interesting situation because you look around the NFC East and the Giants have, $5 million in cap space right now, understanding they've still probably got to deal with Odell Beckham Jr. this offseason. Sure. We know the Eagles are hard up against the cap as well coming off the Super Bowl. And so you wonder what's realistic at this point. Because in the NFC, you're looking at a lot of veteran teams. Bringing Alex Smith over in Washington now, would he be willing to take a chance on a younger roster, or take a chance on an upside play and be a veteran presence and help shape a locker room as opposed to go to a ready-made winner?
It really is interesting, the situation involved, if they weren't even talking about a pay cut. So it's not like, hey, would you take a pay cut and you go back and forth on that and try and decide if you're going to or not. There was no option there. So were they trying to trade him? Were they looking into trade? I don't know what the situation
seems a little convoluted.
was. But it does seem, a month after free agency hits, did you not know at that point? I don't know. There has to be a reason of why you waited 30 days. It's something that had been going on. But, yes, it did not do Dez any favors. But, as I'll always say, nobody's looking to do anybody favors.
No.
It is a business, and you need to treat it as a business. The minute you start saying, well, there should be loyalty one way or another, just take a breath, bite your tongue, and realize that doesn't exist. It's not going to happen at all.
So that's a business decision that the Cowboys made on Dez Bryant. And then there was another player who made his own business decision. Jaguars linebacker Paul Posluszny officially retired yesterday. He announced it last month, but they had the official ceremony. And I think what he said spoke volumes to the player he was and the teammate he was. Quote, I love the game too much and I respect it too much to not to be able physically to do everything that I've done in years past. If that's a year too early, I'll regret it. But I'd rather be a year too early than one play too late. And that speaks to the heart of what this game is all about. Because one of the reasons that I always love football, and you guys obviously loved it as well, it is the ultimate team game. Yes, you have to have a superstar quarterback or a hot quarterback in terms of playoffs and to accomplish things. But if you don't have everybody on the same side of the draw pulling together, it won't work. And when he says one play too late, he went on to say, look, I didn't want to have to look at my teammates and know that they expected me to be in a certain position at a certain time and not be able to make that play. I couldn't live with that.
Yeah,
and that is the ultimate respect.
You mentioned his other linebacker he makes, a Telvin Smith and Miles Jack, saying, if I can't be where I'm supposed to be, it's the old, I don't want to let down my teammates. I don't want to be that weak link. I don't want to not be able to do what I can normally do, and realize that a lot of times it's the players, the last one, they maybe kind of know that, but they don't want to accept it. But this is a player, you want to talk about a player that, when you think of football player, Paul Posluszny is that thought. I know you and Jake played with his brother.
Yeah, Dave.
At Notre Dame. This guy is the epitome of a linebacker, of what he is. You think of guys like Posluszny, you think of guys like a Chris Spielman, of just guys that body parts could be hanging off of you.
Right.
and you're going to continue to play, whether it's a cast on your arm, whether Telvin Smith talks about a story about tearing a pectoral muscle and continuing to play, and just this guy was always out on the field and was a tackling machine, was always there for his teammates.
And to that point, when he made that announcement, some of his teammates that you mentioned, Miles Jack and then Telvin Smith, were there, and they recognized exactly what Puslesny had meant to them. Listen to Telvin Smith talking about Paul Puslesny when he officially announced his retirement.
I've never met a better man than you. I've never had a better teammate than you. I don't think I've ever been able to say someone loved me who I didn't do something for than you. And I promise you, I won't let you down. And I feel like that last game, we let you down. So I dedicate this next season to you. And I promise you I'm going to lay it down and give everything I got, because you and the legacy that you left in so many lives and so many of us players that are sitting here right now, I promise you don't even understand.
Look, as a player, that's the ultimate respect you could have.
I mean,
kind of adoration from your team.
This talks about, Mike, the locker room. And when we sit there and we try and talk about the closeness of a locker room, Telvin Smith has played 4 years in Jacksonville. So they've been together for 4 years, him and Puslesny. And you talk about, we always say you spend more time with your teammates during a season a lot of times than your family. And you talk about playing for one another and love for one another. And when you have something great that goes on and you try and find that person to hug, or something bad goes on and you find that person to hug. I mean, that Telvin Smith just put it in a ball right there to let you know what special relationships you can have in the locker room.
Well, and you also don't get everyone that you can talk about. Like some guys can play their entire career without encountering someone that inspires that. And I guarantee, just understanding guys you've seen around like that before, Paul probably had no idea he was offering that kind of support, that kind of love. That was just who he was. That was how he operated. And that's, I think, why guys can appreciate it so much, because it was something that he did out of obligation to the game, out of obligation to his team. He wasn't asked to. You heard Telvin say it there. He didn't do it as something to him. He didn't give something to him knowingly. He gave something to him by being there and by being himself. And guys see that authenticity. Guys see when it matters to you, and they appreciate it.
Look, the best part about that is the best ability is availability, and he was there. He wanted to be there for his teammates, and the idea of him not being able to be there and do the things his teammates needed is why he's stepping away. Because you're right, he could probably still play another year.
Right.
But then you have to find those games in the meeting room. I'll never forget a couple of players. They told me they're watching film like, who is that guy messing up? And they realize, holy crap, that's me.
That's me.
Mm-hmm. That's me. And that is a stark reality that most players they don't want to deal with.
No. You kind of think you might be there, but you don't want to. You don't want it to be realized.
You don't want to see it in front of everybody,
exactly.
Especially in your position meetings with everybody else around you, and they know it, and they know that you know it, and that it's really uncomfortable. So, tip of the cap,
11 years
for Paul Puslesny, 11 years in, retiring rather 1 year early than one play too late, and his teammates like Telvin Smith giving him the ultimate respect.
Hey everyone, Mike Golic here. Support for the Golic Wingo podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. Rocket Mortgage is simple, allowing you to fully understand all the details and be confident you're getting the right mortgage for you. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS, consumeraccess.org number 3030.
Winning at sports and at sports broadcasting means changing things up.
Just like La Quinta Inns and Suites is changing up their look.
A renovated lobby that's so contemporary it even makes Golic look cool.
Yes, it does. And a totally updated fitness center that even has Wingo feeling like a workout.
I'm ripped. Plus plenty of comfortable spaces to hang out.
Yep, this La Quinta look definitely has a vibe of victory.
So you can just relax, refresh, and get ready for your next big meeting.
Prepare to win at business with La Quinta Inns and Suites.
Book now at LQ.com. Golic and Wingo, ESPN Radio, ESPN News, presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. That was pretty excessive and exceptional trolling by Dwayne Wade.
Yes, it was.
Kevin Hart is a huge Philly guy. Remember, he was a little lubricated after the Super Bowl.
Yes, he was trying to get out of the field and up onto the podium.
And they were like, no.
Yeah.
They would have that great
Didn't go well
social
for him.
media post.
It was.
Obviously a huge
He owned it,
76.
though. He did own it.
He did.
Yeah.
And, of course, he's a huge Sixers fan. And what got into Unite? Kevin Hart. Thanks, Kevin Hart, for appreciating
that. That is awesome. What a game it was last night and for Dwayne Wade. And, again, it was that third quarter where they got outscored 34-18 in game one. This time around, they got outscored still, but it was 33-30. He thought that was a big turning point in the game to hang in there in that third quarter, but he was obviously a very big turning point in that game.
No question. And I think they went on a 17-2 run in the first half when the Sixers looked like they were comfortably in control. So what happens now as the 76ers have finally faced a little adversity for the first time in 18 games? Their 17-game winning streak is snapped, and now they head to Miami knowing that the Heat have home court advantage for the rest of this playoff series. So let's bring in our ESPN NBA reporter Ian Begley, who was there, and he joins us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance line, taking synthetic motor oil performance to a whole new level. Make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics today. Ian, let's start first and foremost on the court. We'll get the social media posts after the game in a little bit. What concerned the Sixers the most in their loss to the Miami Heat? What on the court should they be most concerned about?
The idea that they could not get the open looks from the perimeter that they did in Game 1. They really lit it up from beyond the arc in Game 1. But Eric Spoelstra and the Miami Heat did a fantastic job defending the perimeter in Game 2. So the playoffs are all about adjustments, game-to-game adjustments. I'm sure Brett Brown and his staff will have something up their sleeve for Game 3 Thursday in Miami to try to get those open looks for the Phillies perimeter shooters like J.J. Redick and Marco Bellinelli, again, when this series shifts to Miami.
And I always wondered for Joel Embiid, was he going to come back? He's still not sure for Game 3, but now I always wondered if once they lost, if he would then come back after that. So we'll wait and see how that plays out as we all wait and see how the Knicks head coaching job plays out, Ian, with all the different names. And now it seems, and you can verify this or not, about Jeff Van Gundy not being one of those names involved, but they seem to have a whole big list of names right now.
Yeah, many guys, they're doing their due diligence. Jeff is not a name that's under consideration at this point. And I think that's surprising for some Knicks fans because, they see Jeff Van Gundy available. I believe that Jeff, if he were approached, would have interest in at least talking about the job with Knicks management, but Knicks management has not shown interest to this point in speaking with Jeff. The candidates that they are speaking with right now will be Jerry Stackhouse, David Fizdale, Mark Jackson, Mike Woodson, and David Blatt. So those are the four that we're looking at as the Knicks brass sets up their interviews to fill this head coaching vacancy.
ESPN's NBA reporter Ian Begley with us. We'll see what happens with the Knicks head coaching search going forward. But the search for Joel Embiid on the court, Ian, he wasn't there again in the Game 2 loss and then put on his Instagram story, bleeping sick and tired of being babied. Brett Brown, the Sixers head coach, had to deal with that response in his post-game press conference. Where are we in the drama that is now unfolding with Joel Embiid about whether or not he'll be able to play in Game 3?
Joel has still not been cleared for contact, and to me, that's a big hurdle here. When he's working out with the Sixers, he is not banging around with coaches or any of his teammates, and until you get to that point, you can't really start to talk about him returning to this series. Now, the Sixers are going to practice today. We'll find out later today whether Embiid has been able to take contact in these workouts when we speak to Brett Brown after practice. But I think there's a lot of uncertainty about Embiid actually playing in Game 3 on Thursday. I think the Sixers are pretty confident that he will be back at some point when this series is in Miami, but they're just not sure if it's Game 3. So I think right now it's probably accurate to say it's more likely that Embiid will be back for Game 4 down in Miami.
As far as the East is concerned, what the Boston Celtics are doing now, injuries with Gordon Hayward and Kyrie Irving, certainly notwithstanding, those guys will hopefully be healthy next year, and the arsenal they have of some draft picks and what they're doing, a lot of people like the direction they're going. Are the 76ers in the East that team that is thought to be, okay, especially if LeBron leaves, this is a team that could, because of the youth on that team, could dominate for a while?
In my mind, it's whether LeBron comes to Philly or stays in Cleveland. I think regardless of that, Philly is going to be looked at as that team because you look at their future. They have all these young stars in place, and they also have draft picks going forward. They also have cap space this summer, and they're going to be attractive to any free agent on the market in the summers going forward here. So in my mind, this is a group that's set up for long-term success in the conference, but in the short term, they specifically need Embiid back in a bad way. Brett Brown brought it up last night. He said there were times in this game, specifically the second quarter, when Miami really sped up the Sixers guards. He said this was a time when I thought, hey, if I had Joel Embiid out there, I could get the ball to him in the post, I could settle things down, and this game would have been different.
Ian Begley, our ESPN NBA reporter, with us, and let's stick to that for one more second here, because the idea of Embiid saying he's being babied, this is hard for a lot of athletes to understand, that the medical staff is there to protect them from themselves. As you said, he hasn't been cleared for contact, and I'm sure he feels that, 23 or however old he is, 22 years old, that he's as healthy as a bull and can do anything he wants. But one bad elbow to that eye, and we could be talking potentially about a career-ending injury.
There's no doubt, and that's why everyone outside of Joel Embiid and the Sixers organization is preaching patience. Brett Brown's been asked several times, hey, if you guys had lost game one, would you have rushed Embiid back? Now that you've lost game two, will that change the timeline for Embiid's return? He's been consistent in saying, no, this is not about this series. This is solely about the health of Joel Embiid. So they're looking out for Embiid's best interest here. And Brett Brown chalked up that social media post last night to Embiid's competitiveness, to his desire to wanting to be on the court with his teammates and participating in this series. So he said he didn't have a problem with that passion because it showed to him that Embiid was a winning player and just wanted to be out there.
All right, Ian, back to the Knicks. You mentioned all the names, the potential head coaches that they're going to interview. You know the makeup of that team, led by a 7'3" young phenom who's coming off an injury, what team they're trying to build. In your opinion, who best fits that mold to be the next coach of the Knicks?
In my mind, I think it's going to be a compromise between Steve Mills and Scott Perry. I think the interests there maybe are a little bit competing at the moment, but I think they're going to find common ground on David Fizdale. I think Fizdale is going to end up being the guy, and I think what they like about what Fizdale would bring is he's a strong communicator with his players, and I think that's something that they did not see in Jeff Hornacek, and that was one of the reasons they cited with Jeff as the reason they decided to let Jeff go. But I think, with Fizdale and really with all the coaches they're looking for someone who can connect to today's players. And why that is so important, I think, with Porzingis specifically is because, he's seen how things don't work well from the coaching position in his first 3 seasons in the NBA. And he's looking for stability in that position, just as everyone else is in the organization. But in my mind, whether it's Fizdale, Stackhouse, Jackson, Blatt, Woodson, that coach has to be someone that Kristaps Porzingis is in favor of. This is just a massive hire for Steve Mills and Scott Perry for so many reasons. But I think the top reason in my mind is because it could dictate the future of Porzingis with the Knicks. So that has to be taken into consideration.
So how about the other side of that we rarely talk about? How about for Jeff Hornacek, who was put in a very tough situation in taking over that team? How much does this, or does it, hurt his future endeavors to try and be a head coach in the NBA?
I think people are always going to judge what's on your resume when they're looking to hire you, and certainly there wasn't a lot of success in New York for Jeff. But I think anyone who's looking to hire Jeff will look at the circumstances of his time in New York, and he was never in ideal circumstances with the Knicks. Year one, he was brought in by Phil Jackson. Phil asked Jeff to run elements of his triangle offense and to implement that into Jeff's own playbook. That created a lot of confusion and resistance among the players. And then this year, Jeff was coaching under a front office that did not hire him. So, he was a lame duck coach, essentially coaching 4 guys who didn't bring him in. That's never a good situation for an NBA head coach. So Jeff was never in New York under ideal circumstances. I think that has to be taken into account for anyone who's thinking of bringing him in the future.
All right, Ian, we'll see what happens going forward with the Knicks situation. What happens going forward with this Sixers Heat series, which is certainly getting a little more interesting and a little spicier now with the social media post from Joel Embiid. Ian, thanks so much.
Thanks, Ian.
My pleasure, gentlemen. Take care.
I always think about that from the other side. Yeah. Knicks are going to get a new coach. These guys will get interviewed. He thought possibly at Fizdale. Be real interesting if it is Stackhouse, the success he's had in the G League and coming along. But the other side of that, Hornacek was really put in a tough spot.
It was a no-win situation.
Really was. So, I mean, obviously people on the inside can see that as well, but you wonder how much gets held against you. You're still there. Was there communication issues? He was a first-time head coach, so how much of that is taken into consideration for? Because I'm sure he wants a future in coaching as well.
Of course he would, but again, like you said, they didn't really have the team around him. They had his only one best player was the unicorn, Kristaps Porzingis, and he was gone pretty early on in the season. We'll see what happens, whether or not Jeff Hornacek gets another shot, and we'll see how the Sixers Heat series plays out, because it's really getting it. This is the most stressed game I think we'll see for Philadelphia in the last 4 or 5 years. Mm-hmm. Game 3 looks like without Joel Embiid in Miami, and we'll see how that plays out. Coming up, we mentioned how Russell Westbrook had something that had never happened before, and we got over it pretty quickly. Well, yesterday we saw something that has never happened before in the world of music. We'll talk about that. Golic and Wingo, ESPN Radio, ESPN News.
Here's a little insider travel secret. There are tons of empty hotel rooms out there just waiting to be booked. That's why there's Hotel Tonight. Hotel Tonight partners with awesome hotels to help them fill their unsold rooms, which means you get incredible deals. And even though the name's Hotel Tonight, you can actually book up to a week in advance and up to 100 days in advance in top destinations. So download the Hotel Tonight app to start scoring better deals at better hotels now.
By the way, Dan Stanzik, our fine producer, is back.
He's Bad boy, double question guy.
Wait, Golic?
Oh,
of
yeah.
all people was going to answer my question?
Well, we'll see what you do today. 4 guests today.
Dude, just go away.
All right, we're talking to Jay Billis. And as far as Notre Dame, they beat Pitt yesterday. Bonzie Colson is back. They're 13-4 with him. We've talked about that situation. They play Virginia Tech. If they win here, do you think they're in? Are they in anyway? Or what do you think their path is?
That was a statement before a question. The question only came in at the end. SportsCenter brought to you by 1-800-Flowers.com. Surprise a friend or loved one today with a bouquet from 1-800-Flowers.com. When you order a dozen multicolored roses for only $29.99, you'll get another dozen absolutely free. Just go to 1-800-Flowers.com/ESPN.
All right, Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN News. We are presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. And one of the things I like about this show is I learn things. I learn things almost every day.
Uh-huh.
For example, I was not aware to what the limitations are and are not when it comes to winning a Pulitzer Prize.
Right.
I had never even thought that the idea was that you could win a Pulitzer Prize for some of the things that people have won Pulitzer Prizes for. In fact, we have something that happened now that has never happened before in the history of Pulitzer Prizes.
Kendrick Lamar, for his album Damn, has won the Pulitzer Prize for music, making history as the first non-classical or jazz artist to win this award. It's pretty impressive. He's incredibly successful commercially. Usually it's reserved for critically acclaimed classical acts and much less familiar with the pop charts. The guy has had, a couple of dozen songs in the top 40, certainly some number ones as well. Commercially, as I said, he's off the charts right now, but that's usually not what you're seeing for the Pulitzer Prize.
Right. Pulitzer Prize is normally thought of as a journalism award. From 19th century Joseph Pulitzer, Hungarian-born, an intense, indomitable figure, was the most skillful of newspaper publishers. His innovative New York World and the St. Louis Post-Dispatch reshaped newspaper journalism. So you normally think of the Pulitzer Prize as something awarded in journalism.
Right.
In fact, this is a very rare thing that it's been given out to musicians. They've had special honors before.
Right. They have. To the likes of Bob Dylan, Duke Ellington, George Gershwin, Hank Williams. As you mentioned, they have done that before. Also, in 97, Wynton Marsalis became the first jazz act to win the Pulitzer Prize for music. What the Pulitzer Board said about Kendrick Lamar, the 30-year-old, again, won the prize for his album Damn. The Pulitzer Board said the album is a virtuosic, as am I saying that?
Virtuosic.
Virtuosic?
Yeah.
How much I know. It's why I'll never win this award. Song collection that captures the modern African-American life. He wins $15,000. What's his net worth?
About $800 million.
Yeah. Get Kendrick Lamar's net worth. This will look better on the resume than the actual prize money that you're going to win. for this.
Yeah, look, I was about to say the title means more than the cast.
Yeah,
Let's be clear about
I would
that.
say so. Now, Bob Dylan won
what a Nobel Prize.
A Nobel Prize
for literature.
And he did not go to the ceremony to accept the award.
Yeah.
Now, we have no idea, what the deal is here because you or I will never be part of the Pulitzer Prize or know anything about
there's no chance
any kind of ceremony or anything. Will Kendrick Lamar go to it, maybe perform and accept the award?
In shocking turn of events, researcher Brett would like to add something to the program.
Of course he would.
Kendrick Lamar reportedly made $30 million last year.
$30 million
last year.
Last year.
Okay.
This would be a very small fraction of that.
Yeah, so $15,000 in prize money. Wow.
Well, hold on a minute. Stanzik now is stoking the fires here. Brett believes that Bob Dylan is overrated. Brett, is that true?
I don't think he's overrated. I think he's bad.
Wow.
Whoa.
That's a hot take. That's a hot take from you.
That's a horrific take.
Bob Dylan is bad. In what way is he bad?
He is not aesthetically pleasing to listen to.
He's not aesthetically pleasing. Well, if you
he doesn't look good to you, what about his music?
I was about to say,
music. The ears are part of the aesthetic.
If you're basing Bob Dylan's work on aesthetics, then you don't understand Bob Dylan at all.
His lyrics are nice, but it's music ultimately, and I don't like listening to it. I don't think it's nice to listen to.
Hey, Brett, the times they are changing. Just so you know, need to get on with it.
You're fired.
Yeah. Also, well, he has a segment to do Wednesday, but after that, we'll fire him.
That.
Coming up, we got more about where Dez is going to land, and are Tom and Gronk sending Bill Belichick a message? Whoa.
I don't know how else to say this, so I'll just say it.
What is it, Linda?
I think we should see other people.
Are you breaking up with me? On a roller coaster?
Well, we do have a lot of fun. Maybe we should stay together.
An emotional roller coaster? Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
I just need a little me time.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15%.